Thanks, Brad. All right, mics are muted. Welcome everybody to the Sherwood City Council February 4th, 2025 work session. We have two topics tonight, the transportation system plan updates and youth advisory board discussion. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Jason. I read Justin for a second. So
We've got a lot of J's here working for the city. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason Waters, city engineer. I'm your almost expert in everything from trees to floodplain management to traffic. Here tonight we're talking about the transportation system plan, also known as the TSP, updated in 2005 and again in 2016. One of the neat things about the current update is the 2005 update was ran in our planning department, and no offense to the planners, this is ran through our engineering department this time. Planning is going to be closely involved. We have Joy Chang, our former senior planner, is our project manager. Our 2016 update was ran by the engineering department, but it was, I would describe as slightly pigeonholed by the transportation growth management funds that ODOT administered. So that entire project had to be funneled through ODOT. So this is our first TSP update that we're fully in control of. And so this is great. This work session is intended just to kind of be a precursor to, we're going to be back on the 18th. We're going to post some questions to you and then we're going to check back in. But it's really just to kind of get the juices flowing on the TSP update, go over kind of a TSP 101, discuss the things that the TSP has to do, and then really meet with you over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We have not finalized the scope of work, so that's one of the benefits without the TGM funding is that we get to define the scope of work and then finalize the contract with Kittleson. So some of the
engineers are in charge.
The engineering department is leading this project this time.
Well, I'm more worried already.
Well, we have a planner managing the project.
Okay, that might help. I just know in my professional experience, when you put the engineers in charge of things.
That's why we brought our planner to help manage the project.
I'll work with some engineers.
Yes, so some of the questions you may have, there are requirements of the TSP. It does set the cross sections for our SDCs and our SDC credits. There are some things that the TSP does not look at, and that's street lighting levels, for example. And we may want our TSP to evaluate some of the more arterial streets and collectors, but defer maybe some of the local streets to the Transportation Safety Committee. Another thing that our TSP is not required to do is scope out mid-block crossing warrants, for example, and that's something that has been missing from previous TSPs is specific locations where we may want mid-block crossings that if we got them adopted in the plan, we can offer credits for. And without further ado, I'll just hand it over to the consultant to take it from here and introduce you to the TSP and let you know we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about this again.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening, everyone. My name is Phil Worth. I'm with the firm Kittleson and Associates, and the city's chosen our firm to help you prepare.
Are you an engineer also?
I'm a planner. There's a mix of us at the firm. But I'm definitely on the planning side of things. Just a wee bit about myself and then the presentation and we'll get into it. I've been with the firm 33 years, so I'm finding my way around now and know where the kitchen is and other good things in the office. But most of that career has been here in Oregon. I've done over 40 TSPs, so I also understand that process pretty well. And so I wanted to kind of let you start to get to know me a little bit. And then we'll get into this. My family's been here for all 35 years. We think of Sherwood as our playground. We haven't ever lived here in Sherwood, but we come whether it's to find our Christmas tree in the holidays or go to the festivals that you put on here each year. We love to come to the downtown and just walk the paths and enjoy what you have to offer. And so not being a resident, but being someone who really enjoys and appreciates Sherwood, it's an honor to help you do this together. So we're going to walk you through what a TSP is. I know some of you are very familiar with what they are, and so this is going to feel very familiar. But for those who haven't gone through it before, wanted to kind of give you an overview to that. So I'll just kind of dive right in. As Jason mentioned, we're members of the team. It's not just the two of us. Joy is definitely going to be the city's project manager. She'll be my counterpart in all things. The top four people and then myself will really represent the project management team. We'll be responsible for providing the guidance and direction to the whole project. There's a whole host of folks from Kittleson that will be involved. Nick Meltzer will serve as my deputy project manager. And then another firm is also involved on our team called 3J Consulting. And 3J has worked with you. I think the most recent project involved the climate friendly and communities project that you've recently done. So that's just a glimpse about the team itself. And just diving right in, what is a transportation system plan? So plan is really a part of and a companion to your comprehensive plan. It's the supporting piece to the land use component of the comprehensive plan. And so it's a three-legged stool, honestly. You've got transportation, land use, and then economic development or economic activity. And those three things are really the foundation for how a community lives, works, plays, and grows and thrives over time. The system plan itself, or TSP for the rest of the evening, is meant to be a long range. It's supposed to have a 20-year horizon. And so that inherently drives the need for updates from time to time, is you need to kind of refresh your 20-year look at what are the community's plans, visions, aspirations, what are its needs today, and then over the course of 20 years, how will it change, grow, and evolve? And that impacts transportation and what as well. You see a list of questions that are up on this slide. And that's inherently what the purpose of the plan is to try and answer these questions. Although the plan as a document is required by the state of Oregon, it's your plan, right? And so it really depends on the guidance of this group as a body, but also the community as a whole and the citizens and employees and others that claim Sherwood as its community. They all have a voice and a part to play in the development of this plan. In the end, we're going to end up with a very long list of projects that we wish we had money to cover, right? To pay for everything that we know we need and we think we might need in the future. But we're not going to have enough money. So we have to come up with what's the reasonable funding that is available to us. And with that funding, where would we really prioritize our investments? So you'll start to hear the notion of a fiscally constrained TSP and then an aspirational TSP. They're both part and parcel of the same document, but with that division in mind.
Yeah, 100% agree. If I may, and tell me if I'm just great. I would add a third category that is, we're always working hard to bring in either state or federal money or MISTIP funds. We'll have, MISTIP G coming up. So there's a category for me that's, what do we need to make sure that we're grant ready, that we've done all the homework so that we're ready to go take advantage of those programs. So it's kind of another layer of organization.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. And that's where we've been directing more of our attention as we start to bring the plan to conclusion, is how can we position projects to be competitive for grants, whether they're local grants or federal grants. That notion of where can we make ourselves even more competitive in that process? Yeah. Well, keeping that moving forward.
I'm sorry, and just because I think we have some folks that are newer, and just for the public, could you just talk a little bit about how the TSP relates to like Metro's RTP, the MISTIP funding, just kind of how all of this intertwines?
Yeah,
because it's another layer of importance.
It is, and it leads to me immediately to think about the notion that we do our planning in coordination with our neighbors and with other agencies in the region. So this plan is going to be done in coordination with ODOT, with Metro, with TriMet, with Washington County, your surrounding city neighbors. They'll all have a part to play, some more significant than others. And in that process, that notion of coordination ultimately means that your Sherwood TSP informs the future Metro RTP. So there's communication between plans occurring at all times. And the same is true with the Washington County TSP, that right now we take their TSP as an input to yours, and when you it becomes an input back to theirs when they do their next update. And so it will inform MSTEP among other things.
Just want to point out that Russ Doubleday is actually part of the Metro RTP team. That's working on the RTP and the RFF updates for Metro.
Yeah, so he'll bring particular insights and as it relates to that whole Metro process of nominating and getting projects funded through Metro. Yeah.
Right, and getting on the approved RTP list, get you approved for federal funding if you want to go that route.
That's right. Yeah, and similarly with ODOT. So,
Right.
Yeah. So keeping moving here with respect to what's required from of the TSP, this list of things is really both process and content. So we must engage the public as we do this project. We cannot do this in a vacuum. That's a state law. You would do it anyway, even if the state wasn't dictating. I know that. But other things like analyzing existing conditions of the system or forecasting the future conditions of the system, that's both something that we'll be doing, but also that we'll be documenting. And in the end, it means you'll have projects that we need to do this now. It's a need that exists today. It's a problem we need to solve today. Whereas we'll also look 20 years in the future and say, we don't need it now, but by the time the city gets to be this big, we better have funding to be able to make that project happen. And that's, of course, the importance of the notion of the funding program. And it all culminates in a document that will come before you as a decision-making body to adopt. And after you adopt it, then the city also takes action with regard to that document. Why do this now? You've already heard a few reasons why to do it now. One of the drivers of the now is the climate-friendly and equitable communities. I wish they'd come up with an easier name to say. CFEC.
Just call it CFEC. We all know what that means.
You know it. With that rulemaking that came from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. You've been active with this already, but it has specific requirements regarding the TSP that'll come to the forefront. Of course, Metro has some pressure in terms of timing of plans by local jurisdictions to meet their own schedules for their RTP updates. And then again, more practically, we do it because this thing gives us that look to the future. And if we don't update it with some amount of frequency, it just grows stale. You get most of the projects done, but the remaining projects on the list start to not feel as relevant, or you're not as certain about them. And so you want to reaffirm what's on the list and then add new projects to the. And for Jason and others in engineering, it really informs their development of that capital improvement program, which I know comes before you every year for review and approval. Lastly, the bottom point, the TSP does inform near-term development. You get an application from a developer who wants to make something happen in the community. The TSP informs part of how that gets done, helps that developer and city staff to figure out what are the right requirements that they need to meet to make that development a success in the location where they've chosen. There are these things we call musts, shoulds, and can't. So the TSP must do these 5 things. has to define what your future network of facilities is, pedestrian, bicycle, motor vehicle, transit at a minimum. If there's rail or waterways involved, those come into play as well. It has to look 20 years into the future. It has to sometimes not solve the problem, but identify that there is a problem that more time, investment, knowledge needs to be gained before you can figure out the solution. It becomes a recommendation for your future study. Something that's going to really become a prevalent topic of conversation for all of us is specifically the notion of system performance measures. You have a measure that you use to judge whether or not the system is adequate. It's motor vehicle oriented. And so now what we're trying to do is expand the understanding of, well, how does the system work if I'm a pedestrian? How does it work if I'm a bicyclist or a transit user? And so that notion of performance measures for all modes is going to become a really critical component of this TSP update. Under the shoulds, you have that opportunity to update your guidance and guidelines for development, for the way you construct, maintain, and operate your transportation system. So that notion of design guidance really should be something that TSP provides or gets updated. You should be anticipating more disruption from technology, more innovation through technology and other endeavors that will ultimately be beneficial to the community because it somehow enables us to make the system smarter. If the system is smarter, then it deals with our demands more effectively and efficiently. And then you're already starting policies and programs like safe routes to school. I know this because we happen to be involved with you in doing a safe routes to school study right now, but you've made the decision that you want to do it for all of your schools. And we will want to fold the findings of that work into the TSP. So there's going to be a real kind of marriage of activities that you're doing at a policy and program level that work their way into the TSP. And lastly, under the cans, there's lots of things. I didn't choose to list very many of them. But this is where, once again, you get to create more of an imprint on what this TSP for you is versus a generic TSP for some community somewhere else in Oregon. And I think that that's going to kind of reveal itself through conversations I and Jason and others get to have with you as we seek your guidance and direction in the development of the plan. And again, we're right at the front end of this. We're seeking your input as we develop the scope of work. And this is really where you get to influence with respect to this TSP. Putting the TSP in a timeline context, this isn't the only planning activity that we've got going. With the TSP on the top, you also see the Sherwood West Comprehensive Plan that's moving to its next phase. The road study, the corridor study that's about to kick off, and then of course the utility master plan as well. So we're aware of these things. We're going to align our work wherever we can with these other planning and study processes. And I think the key message here is that the TSP, although it's going to feel like it takes a long time to do, because it's going to be 18 to 21 months to do, it still won't take as long as the comprehensive planning work. And we already concluded that the right way to do this is to get the TSP to the point that you're, as a body, ready to adopt it and create a placeholder for what will become the Sherwood West component of the TSP. When that document reaches its readiness for adoption, then you can simply do an update to the TSP that fills that placeholder and makes it kind of plug and play, if you will. So that's a look at timeline coordination with other things. Again, the notion that we think this is probably an 18 to 21 month process that we'll be involved in together. And now Now we're at the point where we want to stop talking and we want to start listening. We provided in advance with the packet, a list of questions, and they're actually displayed here. The list of questions is really fine. We're not going to get through these 11 questions in the 25 or 30 minutes that we have left together. But it does give you a chance to think about them between now and February 18th, when we'll be back together with you in a similar work session. And this will be all that we do, is hear from you answers to these questions, hear questions you have on your mind about transportation and how we do this TSP. And I'm happy to let you cherry pick the questions you'd like to begin to discuss with each other and with us. Otherwise, you'll be forced to have me pick the question and make you answer it.
Excuse me for a moment. Tim, how much time are we allocating for that next work session on this topic?
Like 15, but we could also do it after we can also do it after
This
the,
next work session on TSP.
The one he just referenced that we're
On
gonna have.
18.
oh, I'm sorry, that one we haven't scheduled yet, but we can do it, whatever you would
I feel
like.
like
The whole hour.
we've burnt up 22 of 30 minutes and we haven't even got to discussion yet. I feel like our work sessions are often either
Yeah.
too short or we have too much lead in that could be done ahead of time.
And I
The
believe the
discussion.
goal was mainly to just make sure you have these and to try to get through 3 or 4 of the questions today, not to try to get answers. And we also decided to put this first so that if we want to talk about the youth advisory board after council, we can. Very brief council meeting tonight, so we can come back in here for work session if we want to. So you can go till just before 7 if you choose.
Questions?
Yes, please.
You guys have questions? We're not limited to these, I'm assuming.
No, you're not.
Not at all. Yeah, so one of the things that I look to our neighbors to the south with envy is Wilsonville's little bus service that they have going around town, that they, as part of their development plan, they make people put in bus stops, the developers. And it feels like with the amount of young people that we have, the amount of, we don't have that many places in town that you can go. I look at that and I say, I feel like with Sherwood West going in, there's an opportunity to say, hey, we can connect these parts of the city by having a little loop that goes around.
Right.
Again, I know that there's all these problems. I always hear about the TriMet boogeyman and, well, we can't do it because they say we can't. And then, and I got to get a real answer as to, okay, well, how can we do it, right? Is there some funding somewhere that we can get that done so that it's another method for both the senior population as well as the youth. I mean, I'm gonna say, and this is terrible optics, but 90% of my children didn't drive at 16. They all kind of waited and and I don't know how common that is anymore, but yeah,
Doesn't
where
matter
it's like,
Buses or not.
I think it's more common now than it was 20 years ago.
yeah, and so I'm like, I have to drive my kid all the way to, like, I want to say, get on the bus and go to the high school. You can get, it's every half hour, you can get on it.
Wilson
Anyway.
is interesting because they're not part of TriMet.
I understand, but they also fund it with payroll.
I understand that, but also their residents aren't getting charged a TriMet tax. But the other thing it creates is they can have their own internal system with just some selected connectors, whereas TriMet I think when you talk about the boogeyman, people worry about all these, folks coming to town. So there's some barriers there.
No, but I'm saying, but even, that's why if it's aspirational
To do it by our TriMet.
No,
Charter.
We
I
can
don't
create
think
our
so.
own buses.
We can. Okay.
yeah, and even if it's. We can opt out, but again, this is one of those things where I hear, well, I heard. I just heard people say, oh, I've heard this, or I've done that, and so I'm just saying, as part of our aspirational plan, can we look at that and say?
That is one thing we're looking at, is that we have a transit section in the TSP, and our discussion was, do we want this to be 2 sentence long or expanded in to include things like new technologies and stuff? And that's one of the reasons we're meeting with you, is to kind of scope that each of these
I think
sections.
that's a
of the TSP.
two-part question. We first need to know what legally are our options.
Yeah.
Before we even worry about funding or anything else, what are our legally, are we allowed to do if we wanted to do it and we had an unlimited pile of money? So that's a Sebastian question more than anything else.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just, it's one of those things where I don't think we're gonna get, anyway, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Short answer.
A lot of policy questions in there, but it's an interesting question, having our own internal bus system. We can't get out of TriMet. So
That's fine. We've only got the one bus coming.
Yeah, that's.
If we want to get people to our hospitality zone, we want to get.
Let's move on to another question.
Yeah.
What else? Anybody have any other questions?
When we're doing TSP's emergency vehicle, sort of like police, are they involved with the planning process for routes, I guess?
So quite often, we'll have a representative from the city's emergency services actively a part of one of the committees. Because we need to understand and appreciate their needs and how we can best meet those. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we'll probably get someone from CVFNR, police for sure, on the technical advisory committee, and then we'll look into the additional from like the WACA distribution and whatnot, just to make sure we're providing all of, covering all bases.
I assume we probably already have this, but I haven't seen it, or at least haven't seen it, since I can remember. One thing I would hope this would cover would be, what are all of the gaps, particularly in pedestrian networks, right? Right, bicycles. We know there are certain areas where we have sidewalk gaps, or we have a path connection gap or whatever, and identifying all those, and then identifying ones that like, okay, there's a sidewalk gap here, but it's not a big deal because there's the sidewalk on the other side of the road and there's not a dangerous road, like that's a low priority gap versus a high priority gap, like how do we get some sort of like understanding of, and then we could work at prioritizing those things and how do we fund them to actually start filling them over time. And I know we've done a little bit here and there. I'm not saying we're not doing anything there, but to me, that feels like something I'd love to be more aggressive at trying to close some of those key gaps around town.
You know,
That would be
question-
our pedestrian action plan, is we can expand the pedestrian action plan portion of the study. Sorry to.
Oh, no, you're fine, sorry. One of the questions, what challenges have you faced in implementing the TSP? And I would think some in our community would say that we plan our transportation after we plan our development, and a lot of that is actually the county part that we don't have control over, but there's been some discussion amongst social media that why are we allowing development before we put all the necessary roads, or widen the roads, or make the roads be able to handle the traffic that this development's gonna bring, that kind of stuff, so.
I'm the only one that feels like we don't have a traffic problem in Sherwood. I don't feel like we do.
On the picture on the very front where that girl was crossing the street, I thought, that's the most traffic I've ever seen at that intersection. But I don't know, we have some somewhere like turning left onto 99 in the morning. It can be backed up all the way to Pinehurst, and stuff. But again, those are, I think, temporary while construction's going on and some other.
We'll see what Waze says about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You have a
true.
question?
So I think you mentioned the pedestrian plan. I heard you say that. Will the traffic calming committee be involved with any of?
Yeah, the plan is to have them as a representative on the technical advisory committee.
I think of like areas where not necessarily new development, but improvements are needed, whether it's, face increased traffic or safety issues or whatever. One area that always comes to my mind, I think about it constantly, is Sherwood Boulevard and Century Drive. What is that, 12th Century, kind of right there. I thought I remember someone telling me a decade ago that the long-term plan was there would be a signal, like that'd be a signaled intersection, but I'm sure that requires removing the other signal. And it's way far down the road, but I feel like that should be a four-way stop like tomorrow. Like, that's one area where I do think there's a traffic problem, and particularly a pedestrian safety problem. I mean, you could sit there a long time trying to make a left turn, and then you know, you're looking, oh, I got a gap, and then all of a sudden there's a pedestrian.
That'd be a helpful question to ask, like, what are your top 3 priority locations?
Yes.
in
I put that a specific example as more illustrative of the concept of like, there are these certain specific areas, I think everyone could probably pull out a list and name them, right? That we know that have long-term plans, but yet they've been a problem for 10 years and we haven't done anything.
So we are gonna,
Incremental things?
we're gonna debunk some of the things that have been in the previous plans, and I think that one showed a roundabout on that side and a roundabout on the other side. And both of those, yes, a roundabout at Century and Sherwood Boulevard,
I've never seen
or
that.
a signal.
Gosh.
And then, but that's what the TSP update's gonna kind of debunk is, should that be a traffic signal there or a roundabout? But the roundabout doesn't work unless you get a roundabout on the other side of the highway, which doesn't fit at Borchers, on Borchers and Edie. And so coupled together, yes, a roundabout system would work, but
That's a NODOT thing, because.
and that's ODOT, yes, and then the distance of the queue, so we're debunking
Thank you.
all of the previous, uncertainty from the previous.
I struggle to understand how those two roundabouts would be related,
So you can
Because
just,
NODOT says they are.
so you don't have,
because there's a signal light in
So
between.
at McDonald's, there would be no signal, it'd be right in, right out.
Right.
And so you'd have to take a right to get back, to come back to City Hall, so you'd have to go across the highway, go around the roundabout and come all the way back, and that's from the 2005 TSP.
Or you go left into McDonald's and through the parking lot and up 12.
If you can make that one, yeah. It's,
That brings up a really good point I wanted to talk about.
Wonders will be a curse forever.
Is, there's kind of, it's the wrong way to put it, but there's kind of like, there's engineering standards. Like, what is the minimum engineering standard for a crosswalk in front of a school? We would argue we want a much higher standard. So I think that should be part of this conversation. It's like, you probably remember the 2-lane versus 1-lane debate over the traffic circle over near Walmart. I think. And the crosswalks in the middle of a block, we were talking about that earlier. So where do we want our standards to be above what the minimums, set by state or some engineering manual or something like that? I think, and that kind of gets to the crosswalk versus no crosswalk conversation too. Maybe we just have a different standard that's more rigid.
be very helpful for, when we're doing development to
Yeah.
get credits for those and to
Yeah.
get them implemented.
Yeah, and particularly the traffic to the school, right? And I know it's a county road, but if you go there in the morning, it is backed up all the way to 99 because there's only the 1 lane essentially that people have to get in.
It's a mess.
Yeah, so it's a mess. So it's one of those things that I'm sure, in fact, I know because I was on the bond oversight committee, engineers said that there was plenty of throughput to get that, so there would not be traffic there. And there's traffic every single morning, every single
That's one
afternoon.
thing we should discuss, whether that's more of a striping maintenance thing, but timing wise, it's the county's road, so we may want to just.
No, but literally, yeah, I would love it if the engineers, county and city all go and stand there for an hour. 15 minutes even, and just look at it and just go, yeah, this is a problem.
There's all kind, and
Because on paper, you probably go, oh yeah, it's probably fine.
and the school zone ends before the traffic light when you're northbound.
Yeah.
Which is
I mean,
crazy.
you can fix
Yeah.
it and there's still gonna be a traffic problem, because schools just have traffic
And
problems.
those will be in the camp.
It'd be better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these are things we
We're
have to
looking
look
at
at.
designing paths to handle a 15-minute peak twice a day.
Well,
I understand, but there's ways that you can, if you time the lights and the crosswalks and everything, because frankly, you could do it if a human was there directing traffic. If you had a cop there going, okay, we're gonna clear out this so that all these people could fill in and then the other stuff could happen. And so if a human can do it, that's where I go, okay, well, it is solvable. Anyway,
it's, yeah, I mean, there's so many, the old high school didn't have commuter traffic clogging it up too.
yeah, that's
So
true.
There's so many problems I think that weren't anticipated. The other area too that I'm interested in making sure we're addressing is we have a lot of preemption coming from the state. CFAC was a great example of that. So as we go through this process, where are those gaps that we need to fill? As you've seen consolidation with developers, backed by these big private equity firms, the capability of their lawyers to find those little holes in the code and take advantage of them has just drastically increased. So as we go through this, just making sure where are the gaps, where are the holes that we need to fill, kind of protect ourselves.
Another concept that we'll ask as a priority, probably is signal controllers. That's one thing that for traffic signals that we often aren't addressing. We only have 3 signals in Sherwood, but we recently have been working on getting this traffic signal at the McDonald's, the controller updated, which is something we haven't tracked and we'll probably look at with the TSP update. So we make sure all of our signals are up to date and creditable so developers can, contribute to having the most advanced traffic signal
AI.
system.
There's AI systems that manage your traffic signals, optimized constantly.
We're working on the signal at the Chevron between the McDonald's right now in advance of the Chick-fil-A that's coming in.
Yeah.
So to that point, I would love a little brief overview of what are the trends in the upcoming, because frankly, I don't know what the technologies are in traffic management and stuff like that, and so I'd love to get smarter on.
ITS.
There's a ton of
Yeah.
those.
For a city our size, what could we do that would actually make a difference, right? We're not gonna have, anyway.
Who's responsible for things like when you're coming out that McDonald's at that light? The road was a pretty big dip, like the front of my car. Yeah, is that a them or is that a road thing?
A little bit of both, I think, depends on who comes in.
I mean, I don't even have a low car and it skirts above my car if I don't go.
I go very slow, 90 degrees out that, and then I.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's on my personal radar screen to, I don't know if the TSP update.
So one more item, it'd be great to just hear what are other cities including in their planning process, like you mentioned. Vision Zero up there, which is, Portland's doing that, they reduce all their neighborhood speeds to 20 miles an hour, that's something I think we should
What is Vision Zero?
just.
No accidents.
No
basically.
accidents, but no.
Fatalities, which you get by reducing speeds to 20 since.
I mean, you never
Hard
get there, but we can. It's aspirational, it's aspirational, but there's, the state recently gave us the power to change those speed limits, so is that something we should be taking a look at?
Yeah. Especially on Sunset.
the TSP should look at speed limits probably everywhere.
Yeah. And so Vision Zero, but what are other things that we're not thinking about that we might want to consider that other cities around us are doing?
Yeah.
We are one of the first CFAC TSP updates that's
You are?
occurring, and I think we are the first.
You are?
Walton's they kind of amended some things with CFAC into their TSP update, but we're the first that's kind of starting fresh, but we want to be kind of the trendsetter with our TSP update.
When we're setting trends, I mean, you can set a trend in being 100% risk averse. You can set a trend that kind of like pushes right up to the edge, some of these, so understanding what those options are, I think are important.
Yeah, one, I'm on our side, that notion of where are you comfortable kind of pushing a limit versus no, here we're comfortable with current standards or whatever it is your common practices are. So that's the kind of guidance we're looking for as well.
People say Sherwood punches above its weight, so. Who knows?
We're trying to do with this project.
So one of the-
There may be something, I'm speaking this up, I don't have anything in mind, but there might be something where like, we really don't like what CFAC's doing here. And we're gonna push that right up to the edge and state, go ahead and try, those types of things. I think.
Right.
It just depends on what it is and what the will of council is.
So one of the things that I heard, I hear all the time when people say, what do you love about Sherwood and our transportation thing are the paths, right? And so, but I would love to push those a little bit and see if, in addition to seeing where the gaps are, see if it makes sense to expand some of them so that they're multimodal, so that you have a clear, hey, you walk your dog, you run on this side and you cycle on this side. So that, and by the way, it might also just mean, hey, on one side of the road, we have a bike lane or something like that, because when I ride my bike down Sunset, it always makes me a little sad that we have bike lane, no bike lane right by the school. And I'm like, well, if we wanted kids to ride their bikes to school, we're kind of sending the opposite message of, you got to get back up onto the sidewalk and do a curvy, thing rather than just have a bike lane. That maybe even a protected bike lane or something.
I'm not quite sure how it fits in, but the, talk about bikes, the e-bikes or.
Yeah.
The electronic bikes and having something, some sort of,
If you have an e-bike section.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's getting
Perhaps,
crazy.
I don't
This goes out 20 years, we need hoverboard.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, that notion of future, the speed differential
Uh-huh.
that e-bikes present.
Yeah.
Now, how do we still provide access, but manage in a way where all users feel safe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy that they don't have to have a driver's license to be on the road.
Yeah.
They can go as fast as,
I got
Yeah.
conflicting information about that, but maybe it's the type of.
I don't know.
Under 50 cc is something really.
It's crazy.
Standard. Anything else?
How do they measure CCs?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Maybe it's a gap in the law.
Anything else?
Or I just have a, like, Stella Olson Park in the winter, it floods on that path sometimes. Would that be something that TSP potentially cover? I know that it's been brought up for many, well, since it was built.
Probably just note that is a gap, a seasonal gap in the system, and we have talked about crosswalks enhancements up at the top of the road over the parking lot. And that would probably be on the aspirational list versus financially constrained. But that would definitely be within the gaps analysis of seasonal flooding. And I think that the study we did for that project was supposed to bring it right up to the 100-year floodplain. But yeah, it does get about, a definite boot's worth of water into the pathway under the bridge, which, and then through Stella Olson Park too as well. But that should definitely be noted in our gaps analysis there. But we will get into the details too, when you, the comment about, we don't want to end up with a multi-use path, adjacent to the 99W sidewalk. And then the Alexander Lane is kind of what I'm referring to there, and we'll have ODOT on the technical advisory committee and talk to them about potentially eliminating the sidewalk requirement from 99W from that section, potentially using Alexander, and then that would be available for, an additional, vehicle lane, which would then reduce the cost of the creek going over the creek and stuff. So we want to use the system that we have already.
Something else just popped in my head again, I don't know how it relates, but as we're going through the process of Old Town strategic planning, how does the transportation, this plan, work?
So that will be an input into our TSP, and that was actually on our timescale there. We should have had that one in with the Old Town strategic plan.
Yeah.
Because that's identical to the EDO work study that the county's doing,
Okay,
and they'll have an output of something that should be adopted in the TSP update, the first go around.
Do any counselors worry that we're gonna end, we're backloading a whole bunch of, because we gotta wait. I mean, Sherwood West is a big thing, and it feels like that's gonna play heavily into the next 20 years of what we're gonna do with that plan. So it feels almost like we gotta get further along on that.
And we've talked about that in our site, the
Yeah.
skill that you had there. We're gonna be, this RFP we put out had the ability to add Sherwood West into it. So we're gonna get going on that now in concert with this TSP update.
Okay.
So we thought about it and then adopt it.
It's chicken and egg.
No, I know, but it feels like, well, that's a huge egg out there.
We'll be able to shadow it in right now, starting with David.
We'll probably be doing a Memphis.
Okay, all right,
That's a lot.
yeah,
You guys have a lot on your plans.
okay,
All right.
as long as we're all okay with that.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. So you'll be back
Yeah, we're excited.
next week or in 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
it'll go by like 1 week though.
yeah, thanks for making the time for us. And yeah, definitely looking forward to 2 weeks from now. And if you need more questions, let me know. I can write a whole bunch of them.
Well, I would leave it with this. I think this council, as she probably knows, is very engaged. We like innovating. We like figuring out new ways to do things, not just checking boxes and so feel free to flex your creative muscles as you go through this.
Yeah, and offer us guidance. Yeah, we'll always look forward to that.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
All right. So next is our youth advisory discussion. Kristen's going to lead that.
Yes, so Brad's gonna switch over to our other PowerPoint. I do want to say thank you to Renee, who has been great at getting some information and really helped pull together some of the structure of this presentation. And I had sent out what you put together to all of council back in December when we were first going to go over this. So we still have that as well. But the goal tonight is to really just talk through the formation of the Youth Advisory Council and make sure and just touch base that that's the direction that council wants to go. As you all know, last year and a half ago, we had a joint youth advisory board with the school district. And though it was a good start, we just feel like we could probably bring that in-house would be our recommendation. And move it to the next level. So we wanted to talk about. So what is a youth advisory board? A youth advisory board or a youth council is a group of individuals who offer support to organizations and governing bodies. They participate in community initiatives, serve as ambassadors, and really just try to provide a youth perspective. So if you're talking about a certain topic or that you want to throw down to the youth advisory board and try to get some input on, how do they feel about this? There would be a great opportunity to do that. There's different benefits, of course, to a youth advisory council, youth engagement. You're creating a direct channel for their voices and their ideas and giving them an opportunity to participate. There's a community impact component, and it increases awareness to the entire community on what challenges youth may be facing. And then it helps create stronger connections. It helps people understand the needs of young people, leading to more effective and impactful programs. We worked on, this is a draft mission statement of what we would see a youth advisory board or youth advisory council doing. And what we came up with is the mission of the Sherwood Youth Advisory Council is to educate, engage, and empower youth from the community by providing them with opportunities to actively participate in local government, develop leadership skills, and make a positive impact.
It's awesome. That's perfect.
And I think part of, thank you for saying it's perfect, but yes, it's important what happens here, but it's really helping develop those skills that the youth can take onto their next opportunities, and whether that's applying for jobs or applying for schools or whatever they're doing. And again, just reviewing what the purpose would be, explore different innovative methods such as creating and engaging community projects and positive youth-focused activities, providing and reviewing comment to elected officials, whether that's for city council, or they could also attend Cultural Arts Commission if they're working on something, or provide feedback to the library advisory board, or even to the senior advisory board as they're looking at different projects. And of course, parks, that would be a great opportunity as well. And then working with the mayor, city council, city departments, and other community organizations to create civic engagement opportunities. I think that's a real important component of this, is that they help create what they want to do. My thought would be we provide some guidance, but we get this group together and we find out what their interests are and help them provide opportunities for other youth to engage.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is amazing so far, so thank you, and Renee, thanks for helping put this together. One thing this council does a really good job of is we stay in our lane in a couple of things.
Yeah.
There's things cities can do, and then there's things we just don't have any control over. It's more a state level issue or federal level issue. So have you talked much about, because I would prefer we're engaging them on things cities have
Right.
control over, because I think, and it's a very selfish reason for that, because we need more kids knowing what a great career, not just being elected, but
Right.
your career that you can have in local government, and really getting them exposed to what we do as a city.
So I think that that's all to be determined. I
Okay.
think that it could be multi-tier approached, meaning the main focus, we want to focus on Sherwood and what opportunities we can create here while providing educational opportunities for them to learn more about government in general and take advantage of some of the resources that are out there. But this is all obviously up for discussion and recommendation. These are some of the things that we were brainstorming, just community events that we already have going on that they would not necessarily need to create from the ground up, but that they could start participating in and really put their twist on it or their take on it. So the annual drug take back program, community-wide cleanups, teen driver safety events, and assisting with special events, which I think there's huge opportunities here in Sherwood, of course, with cruising and Robin Hood and Give and Gobble and music on the green and movies in the park. I know youth advisory boards in some communities, they help run the movies in the park, and they're the volunteers or staff that are down doing the entire program, and they use it as a fundraiser as well. So there's different opportunities there. And then on the local government education side, it's, you know, touring city facilities and getting a better understanding of how the city works, and City Day at the Capitol, and potentially participating in Citizens University. Maybe there's a way to have them.
The Congressional City Conference.
Yep, absolutely. So I think it's a mix.
As the Hillsborough Youth Council, I know, has a table at Saturday Market or something that has small little places for for youth entrepreneurs to put
Yeah.
their jewelry up or their, you know, whatever their small business is. So this may also be a place for the chamber to help us out and say,
Yeah.
you know, hey, we want to provide small business. You know, if you mow lawns, you can put a flyer up there.
So in thinking about the makeup or the organization, was recommended that you might have up to 11 members. There's some youth advisory councils that have 18, 24 members and have much larger groups. But I think you would want to have a minimum of 7. But the bigger the larger groups tend to then almost have subcommittees that focus on different activities. So it's something that we could determine, but we'd recommend starting with a minimum of 7, meeting once a month, figuring out what time and day works best for them, you know, whether that's a 4 o'clock after school or an evening time. Finding a location that works best, whether that's here at City Hall, or if we want to meet elsewhere, and then trying to follow the academic school year, recognizing that most of them are pretty busy in the summertime and not trying to hold meetings during the summer, but meeting from September to June. Yes.
I had some feedback on this. On the frequency, I worry about taking the summer off completely, because especially when a lot of the things we were just talking about that they'd be involved in are happening during that time. Why couldn't you just meet monthly? And if, like, not everyone has to come to every meeting, because you're on vacation, you got a busy week, take that month off, but like, why? It feels unnecessary to like shut it down.
Right.
You know,
Right.
allow people that want to do it all summer to be able to, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but maybe we'll at least try it.
Well, and I think the thought of that, and it could still work with how we have our terms set up, is that we're trying to copy the school year for terms.
I was thinking August to August, and then.
Yeah.
And then you might need to stagger half of it one year and the other half the other year, so you have continuity.
So September to September, just so the school
Yeah.
starts.
September 1 to September
So
1.
as long as we're filling that gap, I think.
But then
that's
for your
it.
initial membership, you need to have like 6 2-year terms and 5 1-year terms or something, so that you.
Right, so there's some consistency. A few things to take into consideration in forming this budget considerations, which would include right now the NLC conference we budgeted to take youth back to that conference. We have 5 going this year. Next year, I think it'd be great if we could have people participate in Capitol Day down at the city. There was a youth contingency at the event last week. And then the other thing that I saw is having them really help participate and seek out grant funding for different projects that they might want to be working on. Great opportunity for them to learn new skill sets and just very helpful. So those are the things that we've identified. Of course, there's staff time, materials and supplies on top of the training.
One thought I had on the budget side is, like, I certainly would want to make the conferences and the Washington thing and the Capitol Day and all those things available to, it's up to everyone on the board, on the committee, on the council, get it right eventually. But I do feel like there probably needs to be some sort of minimum level of participation on their part, and like, you know, we're not, like, can't just get on the board and go to Washington, like, you gotta kind of make sure that, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but you know, we gotta make sure that people are contributing
Maybe it's
throughout the
available.
year, and then if you earn a certain number of points, or you work a certain number of events, or some, you know, your participation has earned you that trip for free,
Right.
right? But if you are on the board nominally and you miss half the meetings and you never go to any event, you never do anything, then
Yeah.
I don't think that should be available.
It's a great point, you earn it. Like the Congressional City Conference, there's, you know, for some of the events, they've capped it, you know, because it was just, gotten so popular, it's big. So
Gotcha.
there might be some constraints
We
on
maybe is available
I'm just saying conceptually, I want to make sure that we're
in like
protecting
your
our budget.
second year, like
Yeah,
so that half
yeah, so
and
in your second term, I love that. Love that.
second year of your
Second year of your term, you have.
if you've done X, Y, Z to have earned.
Yeah.
It can also be a little bit of a competitive. When I did it a long
Yeah.
time ago, I had to write a paper, I had to do a speech, and there was a whole thing behind it. Plus I had to have recommendations from
I like that.
key community
That's great.
leaders and
Teachers,
schools. So there's
school,
different, there's
yeah.
a lot of different ways to do it.
And guess what? That could be their first assignment, is to define what their own criteria is for earning these things.
So Kristen, are you, is there?
Oh, go ahead.
I had asked if you or Craig could get me an estimate of what the staff time is on some of our boards and commissions. I know on most of them, it's 2 staff members, because
Right.
one goes to the meeting, 2 go to the meeting, 1 takes the minutes, 1 organizes and then does research after the meetings, and how much is staff time?
So it varies, and I only heard back from a few. With Parks Board, I'd say probably 10 to 12 hours a month. When you take meeting time, meeting prep, minutes, all of that goes into it for 2 people. Library spends a bit more, and that probably doesn't surprise. Like to provide a lot of information, so they have more prep time. So they're gonna be more in the range of potentially 15 to 20 hours. a month
Combined for their 2 people.
For their 2 people,
Okay,
but they don't necessarily always meet every month, so
that's true.
that varies. And then if you're taking on a big project, like you're updating the parks master plan, or you're having a lot of events, that's gonna increase the time as well.
Let's
Senior,
carve that kind of stuff out separately, though.
yeah,
That time's not dedicated to having the board, it's dedicated to that project that you're with.
Yeah, which is.
and I'd say senior advisory board, very similar to these 2, you know. 12, 15, depending on what's going on. Might even be a little bit less, but they're working on a lot of the age-friendly stuff. And then traffic safety, traffic police advisory is gonna be quite a bit more.
So 10 to 15 with traffic safety, which is just with our 1 person, and then about 10 for the police advisory board. That doesn't include my time.
I said there's 2 people, that's 2 staff, you and Angie, yeah.
And so on the traffic safety committee, that doesn't include officers.
So like technical stuff.
Cases. So.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's 30, 40, 50 hours probably just in that.
In some meetings, we have to have 2 people there, but there's others that we could look at technology to take the notes and then.
Yeah, most of them,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
most of them we have 2, and then oftentimes like here comes and gives a report at Parks Board, and Rich is often there, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't count that.
But those
I
ones
mean,
we
the-
don't count
the
quite
2
as
people
much.
that are dedicated, that are there at every meeting, because they're the liaison and the,
Yeah.
is more what I'm thinking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have the bandwidth and do we have people in mind who would do this?
That's a good question. I believe we are committed to making it work. Like, I think it's important, and I think it's the next step, in my opinion. So we will move things around and make it happen.
Do we have, is that gonna be you?
Do we have folks that want it? I mean, this is interesting to them, but like.
I think so, and I think that depending on how things unfold the next year, and if we end up hiring my position back or make some different changes, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Because I just think that normally, and maybe a lot probably don't do this, but if they're spending hours outside doing this
Yeah.
then they flex their time and that's not hours they're doing their normal job. But some may not flex, but I would assume you
Yeah.
flex, so that's losing work hours.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
And we have a lot of boards. Some cities have a lot more though.
I think we've been talking about it for so
Yeah.
long, you know, for so many years that it would be great to push it forward, but yeah, I mean, there will be some staffing challenge.
So we could certainly, if people didn't feel comfortable adopting it in a more permanent fashion, we could adopt it as like a 2-year pilot program that we have to come and renew or something. I'm good with it. I'm on board.
But I think we have someone in the room that is interested in this. Did you want to say anything? What do you think?
I would say that there's definitely like a lot of interest in like governance from certainly my age group. Like in school, I do youth and government, and I would say there would be multiple people in that willing to try and do the youth advisory council, and even in some other clubs too, just representing like what they want and from.
So did I hear you're volunteering to help us recruit?
Essentially. I do, one thing I noted that I thought potentially could be a little bit iffy is the terms, because for me, I'm a junior, and I really want to do this, but that could potentially like hinder my ability to execute it fully because I'll be leaving college eventually.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we'd have to take that
We
into
need to want
consideration and not eliminate people from being able, because they're a senior and can only do 1 year. We can fill another 1-year term with somebody else the following year. It could be-
And what
When
we
we started out,
boards for government, if there's like 4 people, when you start it up, they're 2 years term, but half of them only get 1, so you can bring staggered.
Yeah.
We can accommodate that. for sure.
Were there any other items of concern that you saw that and you said, oh, you know, that's iffy?
So
Anything you forgot?
I really don't think so. I mean, potentially, coordination within more like clubs at Sherwood, like specifically the youth and government one. I think just keep having that collaboration that already exists because of the Future Leaders Conference, like that collaboration is already there, so I'd say continue with that.
Do you think that youth would be doing this for something on their college applications, or do you think they'd be doing it because they actually thought they could make a difference?
I think it depends. I think it's the same way with everything, really. People are going to execute that, even if they're doing it just for their college apps.
Yeah.
They're gonna make that difference so that they can put it on there. And some people are just passionate about certain things,
Or
so.
both?
Okay, great.
And I'd say one of the reasons we talked about having this is, as the high school in with the Y, they do the youth and government, but it's more of a state level or federal level. Like nobody's introducing you to the local level, at the city level, like people. Do they know what the city does or how, you know, that kind of stuff, so.
So I hear consensus that staff can put together a resolution and an ordinance, I believe. Yes, an ordinance. But we need an ordinance to create the committee, we need a resolution to assign a modifier liaison lists. Who in the room would love to be liaison? I don't know.
I normally would, but I gotta.
Are you interested?
I'd be, I mean, I wouldn't want to take it away from Renee, but I'd love to be an alternate or something.
Renee's put a lot of work into it so far. It's passionate project for me too.
I was gonna say youth compassion.
But I have a lot.
Yeah.
Already, so.
And right now, as it's called, council, we have to figure out what council is, and we have rules about boards, committees. I don't think that we have defined council.
We don't have to call it council.
It can be called whatever.
Youth Advisory Board,
Advisory committee.
committee,
Whatever is appropriate to keep us,
Yeah,
keep it simple.
keep us from getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So you're interested?
Well, I mean, Renee's the one who's been the most passionate in you, so I was just concerned because she didn't have time to do planning, so I didn't know if she had time to do it before.
Planning's a little bit different though, all the stuff that has to be done to prepare for the meetings, all the readings and stuff that has.
The liaisons don't have to do all that. Yeah.
But it also means more frequently. It's and a lot
It
longer.
meets, yeah, twice a month, so it's fair.
Very different.
Very.
So I'm fine with Renee being the lead. Who, does anybody want to be the?
If you want it, you can have it, but I wouldn't mind being an alternate otherwise. Yeah, I'll be an alternate.
Here we go.
Do we have to amend our budget to throw some money
in the
that way?
budget process, so this would be for next year, so we'll just
Okay.
include it in the budget.
And we had already budgeted for the national conference.
Oh, great, okay.
Had a partial grant. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Renee. So we are adjourned from work session in 5 minutes. We'll get going on that.
Fundraiser, will that go into like, say, hey, we're gonna do additional trips to Washington or what?